Welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and even when I'm dreaming cannibal cows, God is working. Today, we're talking about how God is always working for our good, unless you're Pharaoh's baker. But before we lean in with human decency and kindness, now that they're only speaking up because they've heard the positive interpretation of my dreams, I'm sure it'll end well for them. So let's welcome in our favorite Get-Opers, Maron and Amy. Good day, guys.
I thought something glitched in my ear. I didn't hear anyone say it like that. No, it's sooner get. You added a. There was a lot of vocalizations going.
It means work together, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so
wow, you paid attention.
I put a hers at the end of it.
Yeah, it was like a different language.
Yes, it is. It is a different language.
No, but I mean, it's great. Like a made up language is what it's about when you said it.
Amy, how you doing?
Good.
You're sitting in for Barry today. Thanks for being here.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Are you exhausted, Amy?
I'm a little tired. I think because I was sick last week, and I don't feel like that's totally over. Like it's over, but it's not over.
Sure. So it had nothing to do with the show.
I don't even know why I said that. Oh, I was probably saying, I know about COVID. Anyway, yes, I am tired today. I am, yeah.
Yeah, because the show, which is basically like 6 months coming to an end.
Yeah, I mean, from auditions to the end of the show. Yeah, it is 6 months. Yeah, June.
Congratulations on a great show.
Thanks.
Great.
Yeah, how are you feeling? Other than tired, how are you feeling?
Oh,
are you like sad? Like, is it one of those situations where it's like, man, I wish we could do it again, keep going, or is it like, thank goodness it's over?
Yeah, as we speak, the set's coming.
Yeah, that's real bittersweet. The set coming out is really hard to watch. Like, just because I really liked the set a lot. I thought it was really well done and beautiful, and the lights embedded in it make me so happy. Like there's certain things that just make my heart happy, and lights and sparkle. And this was a set that gave me all of that.
So yeah. Fun fact about the set. Am I remembering this correctly? Ryan designed the set to be monochromatic in its color scheme.
Yes.
There were only 5 colors.
I think 4.
Yeah.
So, and the 4th was black that was added just for some definition.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. So when he was describing that, when the set was going up, of course, I'm not inside Ryan's way, so I cannot see his vision. But obviously he knew the lights were going to add all the color, and the costumes was going to add all the color. I thought that was a really cool design choice.
Yeah.
You could have designed that set any which way.
Yeah. We felt like, I mean, you felt like you were in Egypt when the curtain went up. Like it felt like it was the sands of Egypt. That's what it felt like. And he did a great job. And the use of the curtain was it's really hard in that show when you're in Canaan, because you're between Canaan and Egypt. Every version I've seen of it, Canaan can be boring.
Yeah.
Because Egypt is where all the action happens. That's where the color really comes in. And but he used that white curtain to project things. So it did keep it much more lively and gave you, because we don't have fly space, which means raising and lowering curtains in our auditorium. So lots of people would just fly a curtain down.
Oh, yeah.
Over Egypt so that you can't see what's behind, but we can't do that. So we have to come up with creative ways to have a backdrop without flying an actual backdrop in. So he did it with projections, which was
that made it even cooler. The projections.
Yeah, the projections.
And really used the widescreen.
Yeah,
like when they were doing that Tonk song.
Yeah,
our cactus is up there, and kept eye.
It was fun. We sat together because Ryan was. Sometimes he's guessing. Like I think this is what she wants here, and then he and I sat together, and I'm like, yeah, that works great. Here, let's put this here. And then Danny, our stage manager, is responsible for making sure the screens switch at the right time.
Yeah.
Which we're always talking through all that stuff. So yes, it's all over. It's all coming down. I feel satisfied. I thought it was a really good show. It was a good run. There's lots of factors into that. The amount of people that came to see the show was what we had hoped for. With the school day show, we ended up with over 8,000 people that saw the show. Bought tickets at least. And it met our goal or came really close, which makes me really happy. I thought the show.
What was your least favorite
of the whole show? I was kidding. Oh, there are some not favorite parts of like the process and stuff.
I didn't realize how like I had never seen it.
I know either people have seen this show multiple times or they've never seen it before.
I had never seen it. And I was very surprised at how funny it was.
Yeah.
It was very funny.
Yeah.
Like they start singing in like the Southern accents or whatever.
Right.
And I thought it was a mistake. When I saw it, I was like, does anyone know that?
Yeah.
That's not like
you
the
couldn't tell it was a
Canaanite
Western
accent
song when he started whistling.
Yeah, but I was like,
it
it didn't hit me until they started singing with the French accent. I was like, oh, the accents are a thing.
Yes.
Like I watched the whole country song and I was like, that's not a Canaanite accent.
Oh, I can't know.
And then Elvis was the Pharaoh.
Well, yeah, I got that.
Well, it is interesting. And my daughter Annie, who does not love musical theater, she loved our production. She said, I don't love that show. I'm going to be honest. She doesn't like it when it's all singing anyway. And Joseph is also. And when I told her, Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote that song when he was 19, or wrote that show at 19. Wow. And Tim Rice, the lyricist, was 22. And she goes, oh, you can tell. Well, she meant that there were some cheesy parts and kind of playful. And like, I always thought, oh, he probably had reason. He totally had no reason for why it was country or French, or he just thought it would be fun. So he was just throwing stuff out. But it is funny.
Yeah.
And, our whole vibe of it being, we're telling these Sunday school kids, trying to get them to engage with a story. Well, that would make sense. Yeah. You would give them little, okay, well, let's try to modernize this. Let's try to make this something that and the Elvis character doesn't work for really the age of the kids in our show, but man, did it work for our audiences. Oh my gosh. Loved it.
It was one of the best theater entrances in any show we've done.
Yeah.
When he came through those double doors and the smoke blew, his came open. It was ridiculously over the top. You could not help but laugh.
I was sitting around a bunch of people who were probably like me, and they never seen it because they were dying.
I was really excited when I would talk to people in the lobby who had never seen any production of Joseph, because they have no idea what they're in for. Yeah. There's so many surprises in that show.
There are. And we just had the guys to pull this off. Yeah. Like I'm never going to do a show unless I feel like we can do it pretty well. I mean, or very well. And luckily, we've been really blessed and fortunate to have the right people show up for the right things. But last year, there were so many young men that were like, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? Yeah. And I was like, oh, they'll be great at this. And the brothers were just ridiculously good. So good. I mean, every time they got to Canaan Days, I was like, okay, watch out, audience, because you are going to love this by that last note.
Yes.
And yesterday in particular at our matinee, the narrators had to hold back from starting after that song because the audience wanted to. I was surprised they didn't give them a standing ovation. Like they just did. Yeah, they just were clapping and clapping.
Wait, which song?
Canaan Days, where the brothers are
the
French.
The French. I saw the show a total of 6 times. And I think yesterday's Sunday show at 2:00 was the best.
Yep. They were awesome. Because it's 6. Yeah, you are a big shot. Yesterday's audience was about 1,200 people. So that, and they were just like, this is it for them. I think everybody feels that energy in the room. And everyone that I saw at intermission yesterday, were like, we loved it. And we're like, yeah, it's too bad you don't get to see it again.
A couple people came more than once.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep. And brought friends. And
best entrance ever. Also, longest ovation ever.
Oh, you mean the curtain call?
Yeah, as soon as Joseph's down, he's like, everybody takes a bow. It's like, all right, let's stand up, give an ovation. And then 20 minutes later, we're still standing clapping because there's like a whole reprise.
Right? Wasn't it like
it should have been? It should be like 12
So that's normal. Yeah. That's not something we did.
No, that's like some people go to the show just because they can't wait for the mega mix at the end.
So that's
which is what they call it. It's a mix of all it's like a reprise of every song. But sorry, it's not a reprise if you actually do it. It's just written. It's almost every song in its entirety. I mean, it feels like it. So we cut about 5 minutes out of it because it's super long, but it's fun.
Also, everybody is a sweaty mess.
Yes. I know.
Yeah.
Like,
So
It's
sweaty.
just pure step around.
everybody's just completely soaked.
I mean, afterwards, the brothers kept trying to hug me, and I was like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
no."
You know what's funny? My son plays drums all the time. He never sweats on a Sunday morning.
sweaty.
Totally sweaty after the mega
Yeah,
bass.
yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's a hype. I mean, and our dancing was incredible, but some of them, like, they're doing backflips, and I mean, other performances I've seen of it. We have so many people on stage, we can't get away with some of that. But it's just it's super fun. And I thought Isaiah, the guy that played Joseph, did such a great job of getting. Well, here's the other thing that nobody knows but me and the cast, because they wanted to literally kill me for this. After the show ends and we're getting ready for Megamix, Joseph is supposed to sing "Close Every Door to Me" again, the entire song. That's the one with the candles and the slow voice and things like. He's supposed to sing that whole song again. And I was like,
Why?
that's insane. We're not doing that song again. I love the song. It's beautiful. It's a pinnacle moment of the show, but it doesn't need to be reprised. Well, that's so that people can change for the Megamix.
Oh.
So I said, here's what's going to happen. Here's what we're going to do. And then I did we're going to take one bow. You guys are going to run as fast as you can. You better have it choreographed backstage, because you've got literally probably 45 seconds to a minute to get out of your costumes and into Megamix.
Wow.
And they were all like, what?
Okay, that explains a lot. Because I was just helping with the stage teardown
Yes.
that's happening right now. Took a break from that to come up and do this podcast. There's a lot of confetti. You know, we're
Yes.
finding it
It's in
everywhere.
a parking lot.
We're going to be finding confetti for the
forever.
rest of our
Yeah.
natural lives. But what I was more surprised by was the sheer amount of bobby pins I'm finding everywhere.
Yeah.
It's probably from
No, yeah,
changes.
they were throwing things on. I'm
Oh
sure
my
they were
goodness.
throwing things
I
all
am-
over the floor.
I'm making bank on bobby pins.
Yeah, you're going to have them
They're
forever.
everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. So I was like, can you imagine if we'd done that whole song again? I'm like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, they had to change very fast. But that's why Isaiah would stay.
Oh, that he
I
was
said-
stalling.
Yep. I said, Dave, we
Wow.
need to vamp a couple more times. And I said, Isaiah, you're going to just have to say, hey, everybody, we're so glad. Nope, don't leave yet. There's more to come. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
My goodness, that's
Yep.
not written into
Nope.
the show.
No,
I never would have known
Yeah.
that.
good.
Well
He owned
done.
it. He owned it. I mean, he took it and he owned it. But I was like, dude, you got to give him more time to change. You're going to have to hype the audience for a couple of
I was
reasons.
not prepared to stand for that entire thing.
Here's the other thing that was hard about that.
Was that hard for you, Tyler?
It wasn't hard. We brought our kids, and I mean, they're all hopped up on sugar, and we're like, all right, we're almost done, and we're about to leave, and then literally.
Well, some audiences, they sat back down, which I was
Yes.
glad about
Yes.
because, and I told Isaiah, if they stand, you can say in that, hey, take a seat. We're not done yet, because the minute people stood,
Yep.
anyone in a wheelchair and any little kids were really struggling to see.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
I
right.
didn't-
That's why.
Yeah.
It's because my kids couldn't see, so I'd hold
Yeah.
50 pounds,
Yeah.
Oh, that's real hard.
clapping
That's when you're
for 25 minutes.
Why does the time keep getting longer?
I know it was not. Hey, just be thankful that Lori, our choreographer, which she is a magician. That woman, the way, I mean, people are like, great job. And I'm like, you might want to talk to Lori, because I mean, the way she moves people around that stage
Yeah.
is remarkable. And Jen McBurney too helped a ton.
So what are we doing next? What are we going to do next?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, fine.
Lori even turned to me when she was choreographing the Megamix, because it was a lot. She was like, how do you feel about cutting the, I said, cut whatever you want. Cut whatever you want. It's still going to be fun. Everyone's going to love it. Cut what you need to cut. So we cut a lot of that. So you didn't have to stand as long as you could have.
Yeah.
What is next?
Yeah,
I
what's
don't
next?
know. I don't know. We have
I've got some
lots.
ideas.
Okay, well, you can throw those out and we'll see how they land. There's a lot of conversation that needs to be had about just what capacity do we have as a staff.
Yeah.
It is real tough at the end of a show to not be ready, like for everybody else not to be ready for the next one. The whole cast is just begging me, what are we doing next? I can't wait. I want it. But I have other people that are like, hold your horses. We talk about like just how do we manage all of this? How do we keep going? What is feasible for us to do?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm trying to figure out how do I continue to maintain an artist community, particularly a theater community, without it always having to rely on a huge show? Are there ways to keep people connected without having, not that we are doing, I don't want people to think we're not doing shows. It's just figuring out what's the scope of them all the time. Like how do we manage huge? Can we manage huge every year? Yeah.
Dessert theaters.
Dessert theaters are always on the table. It's what venue do we do it in? And then the event becomes a big piece of it. So, when we do dessert theater, the event became almost bigger than the show itself. So we do smaller shows.
We used to.
Oh, we did dessert theater a lot. That's how we started.
Yeah.
But that became the focus. Like you're coming with your friends, you're having dessert, you're hanging out together. And the show was kind of like an add-on to that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where now our shows are you're coming to see the thing.
I don't know. People might be coming for the concessions.
They are.
That was very impressive.
Yeah, the care center team did a bang up job on concessions.
Yeah, really cheap, top of the line.
Yep.
And my kids came and opened his cookies and immediately dumped them all over the floor, like below our seats. So it was
nice. So we couldn't even get them.
Now I know where you were sitting.
Yeah, because you had to clean up.
I'm in there vacuuming.
Yep.
I wonder what the care center made off of concessions. I haven't heard the total.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Because that's always a cool. I think they've made a decent amount off of. They run the whole concession thing. The other thing that was really cool was the lobby.
Yeah.
Carrie Honeycutt helped. I wanted that Sunday school vibe, so I'm like, why wouldn't I ask Carrie? She is our director of elementary education, and she had the cutest cutout picture things, hanging, paper chain. It was just, that was so fun. Activity tables. It was so fun.
Yep. It was really good. All right, Maron, what's new with you?
I'm tearing down the stage. That's what's new with me.
Well, you guys are both sick.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad.
I'm better.
I told you guys before we started the pod, I have a prayer team, and my prayer team always prays over me, especially as I'm preparing a message and getting ready to preach. But I felt like I was losing my voice. And if you're a loyal listener, you might remember Barry had lost his voice last week and did this podcast with no voice. So I must have caught something, because I felt like I was losing my voice Friday into Saturday, and even Saturday into Sunday. I had my prayer team praying that I'd even be audible Sunday morning.
Yeah. So it was that bad.
It was that bad. And then last night, I think after, I preached in the morning. I saw the show. I did Merge, our high school ministry, last night. And after Merge, I went and helped tear down the stage. So I didn't get out of here until around 9:30. My body was like, we're done. We're done.
Right.
Let's shut it all down.
I have a boundaries question, I guess. Like, people here are kind of known for not being able to say no. You very much so.
Oh, okay.
But like, when you signed up for Merge, because what were you doing? You were playing music.
Well, I was originally signed up to play electric guitar for Merge. And I think, okay, well, I'm usually tired when I'm done preaching, but I'm not singing and I'm just back there strumming a guitar, like, fine, I could do that.
You ended up singing.
I did not end up singing.
All right. So you knew when you signed up for Merge that that was a preaching day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
I
had a long talk with my family actually about when I got home last night. My son and I feel the same way. We are energized when we are worshiping in Merge. Like it's a life-giving thing. I might have been dog tired after preaching, might have been tired after the show, but when I'm there, a big part of my role is to help develop these young worshipers that are in our high school ministry. And so there was a boy, he's a junior in high school, and he's kind of new to leading songs on his own. And part of my job is just to encourage him and hype him up, and then give pointers to different people in the band. And they also do a little bit with like the computer. So I'm there to kind of troubleshoot some things. But it all comes together, and it's multi-generational too. it all came together in a way that was so life-giving to me. I needed to be able to just let go and worship. And it was great. I felt like I got a second wind after merge, which sent me into the sanctuary, helping to like take down my drink and stuff like that. Yeah. It is not, sometimes it can be hard to like, get myself after lunch on Sunday. It can be like, oh, I got to be back at church by 3 or whatever the call time is. But never when I'm driving home do I regret having done that.
Yeah.
I always feel it.
In some
Last
ways,
night you couldn't have said that you regret it because you didn't have a voice.
and sometimes it's better, like, had you gone home, but you were like, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm doing the show. I do it. Because sometimes it's when I go home and allow myself to let go for a minute.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I can't. This is real tough. But if I just keep pushing through, and I know that there's going to be an end, you just do it.
Yeah. And not every weekend is like
No,
this.
no, it isn't. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like we're all kind of in a little bit of a push right now. Yeah. Like the show's ended, but it feels like there's a lot coming up in the next few weeks.
Because there is. The show has ended. We have a service on Sunday.
Right.
Then it's Thanksgiving. Then it's Tim's retirement service. That will be a special event.
Yes.
And then you're into December, which is just the month of get-togethers and holiday stuff and special events and Christmas Eve.
Oh,
it's exactly. It is a push.
All right. Well, we're going to keep pushing.
Yeah.
That was a great transition.
What about you, Tyler?
Well, all right. The one thing I got a lot of feedback from last week, I reported Milo was sent to the principal.
Yes, you did.
Podcast. And I got a lot of feedback of what I should be doing or shouldn't have been doing. And I asked for it. So thank you, friends of the pod, for giving me all the advice. People stopped me in the lobby on Sunday saying, hey, I'll just listen to the pod. Here's what I think you should do or whatever. I will tell you what we did do, and I guess we can talk about whether that was a good idea. So, as I reported last week, Milo was sent to the principal's office for talking at lunch.
Okay, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right?
Sorry, I don't know who his teacher is.
I don't know. I guess it's like you eat lunch, and then we need 5 minutes of quiet so we can make sure you eat your lunch instead of playing around. And then
you can't eat and talk. That's how I spend my whole life, eating and talking.
Yeah,
to make it work.
And so he got sent to the principal's office. Sit back. We told him when he got home, he was like scared because 24 hours prior to that, I said, if you ever get sent to the principal's office, you're going to get punished.
Okay, you shouldn't have said that.
Well, I did say it.
Well, I know, but I'm saying...
So he was shaking in his boots to tell us, but he told us pretty much right after school.
Of course, because he probably couldn't hold it in.
Yeah, he couldn't hold it in. And so we told him, some rules are silly in life, but you still got to follow them when it comes to school and things like that.
That is brilliant advice.
Maron told me.
I think some rules are silly, and I'm not sure that you should have to follow them.
But when you're 6, you need to follow.
Yeah, and that is life. You're not going to agree with every rule you're presented with.
True.
For me.
But that's sometimes I think you have to buck the system and say the rules need to change.
And we made him write out a sentence 20 times saying, I'm sorry, I will follow the rules, and give it to the person who sent it. Principals.
That was like beyond what I encouraged you to do. You took it up a notch.
I gave him a choice. I said either no more TV for the rest of the week or this, and he chose this.
Of course. Well, I would totally choose that. But did he feel bad about it? It seems like he felt really bad.
He felt bad, but he felt bad. And actually, Carrie Honeycutt was one of the people who gave me feedback, and she said, if he's getting a consequence at school, that's where we leave it. Yeah, no consequences when he gets home. So that's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We had already done the consequence thing, but
I like to reinforce what's happening to me. Yeah, I just do think.
Yeah. So that's where we are now. So he had to write it 20 times. He had to do it 5 times each day until he was done. I don't think he's done. I think he's like 15. In my word, poor guy. What? It's actually, he gets both punishments because the amount of time it takes him to write 5 sentences.
He's now watching TV. That's genius. Brilliant.
Yeah. So that's where we are with that. Yep. I'm sure there'll be a new thing to report next week.
Well, but I hope he has a lot more sentences to read.
Yeah. All right. We're in week 3 of our series, Dreams and Destiny, following the story of Joseph. We've got one more week to go to wrap up the story of Joseph. So even though the show is done, we've still got story to tell about Joseph. And Maron, you're here because you preached Sunday?
She's here because she's the host of the podcast.
That's what I say.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's funny.
And because you're a host, but you gave the message this past weekend. So tell us what the big idea was that you wanted people to walk away.
Well, the big idea was really about how God works through the circumstantial details of our lives to reveal his ultimate plan. Because that's what I see described over and over again in the story of Joseph. If this thing hadn't happened, then this thing wouldn't have happened. And there was a whole sequence of events in his life that led to God's ultimate plan and really his plan of salvation to save people from this famine that was coming. So yeah, that was true for Joseph. It's true for us. God is so present in our lives that he is present even in the tiniest detail, even in details that we have no way of noticing in the moment. God is just so incredible that way, that when we live lives that are completely surrendered to him, like Joseph did, Joseph acknowledged God in everything he did. And so God was able to use even the tiniest detail for huge moments of transformation later on.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think I want to ask this now. But you usually when you preach, you usually include stories of your life. They're personal to you. This was no different. This sermon, to me, tells the story of marriage, especially in the last 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
You don't get too deep in specifics, but you were dropping Easter eggs all throughout.
What's that?
Yeah, you're just like, there's a guy that I met, or there's a guy in my dad's band that went to Grace. He lives in Fishers. And if you know you, and the story of you in the last 8 to 10 years, you're like, oh yeah. I know what she's talking about. I know what she's talking about. You know. And so can you talk a bit about what God revealed to you through preparing this message about your story? Was it something like when you were presented, here's the topic we would like for you to preach on? Was it like, oh, I know where I'm going to go with this? Or how did God reveal kind of the angle you took to you through this process?
Wow. That's a really good question.
Thanks.
You're just the best at asking questions, Tyler. I just want to affirm you.
I bet you talked a lot at lunch.
I never got sent to the principal's office. I've been through
that is absolutely shocking.
I know. Never.
And actually devastating. Like you should have been. Probably Milo shouldn't.
Probably, but I never was.
That is. Well, they were running loose and free at your school, that allowing you to just talk at lunch and
heaven forbid, talk at lunch.
All right, I'm going to answer your question. This is a sermon series that's 4 weeks long, but telling the story of one individual, one unified story. And so I didn't just want to study for my leg of the relay race, right? You kicked us off. Barry took the next leg. I took the third leg, and Barry's going to bring it home next week. So I approached this one a little differently. I studied the whole story. I studied the story as a whole. So even though you had already given a message on, 37?
And a little bit of 39, just very, very beginning.
Right, because we skipped 38.
Hell yeah.
Judah and Tamar, the business.
Right. Go read it for yourself. Although there's such a great story in that too, with his redemption later on.
Right.
Yeah.
So in my studying, I didn't skip 38.
Right.
I wanted to know the tie-in and why the story of Joseph's integrity stands out juxtaposed, against the story of Judah's lack of integrity. So anyway, I studied the whole thing, and this is my problem. I was actually talking to another pastor. He attends Grace Church, but he's a professor. And I was like, how do I take my head full of knowledge now that I have read commentary after commentary? When I was on the Merge retreat, every spare moment I had a commentary in my lap, and I was studying, stuffing my head full of knowledge. Now I know too much. How do I get these thoughts on paper in a way that doesn't make me feel totally overwhelmed.
Don't you go through this every time?
Yes, because I'm what you would call an amateur.
No.
I don't know. Like, should I be using an outline? Like how? And so really, like when I get down to the actual crafting of the message, that's when I'm reaching out to my prayer team. I'm going in, guys, pray for me.
Yeah.
My husband brings food upstairs to my office.
Yep.
I just go in, and then the Holy Spirit starts to work. And sometimes I just get words on paper, and I might go back to those words a day later and say that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, and I'll change the intro or whatever. But I got to get started. It's like I got to get the ball rolling. And once the ball is rolling, things start to flow. And it really does feel like the Holy Spirit is just breathing life. I didn't know I was going to share that story. It came as the Holy Spirit was just telling me what I needed to get from the story and reminding me of where he has been in the circumstantial details of my life. And if he was that for me, then certainly he is that for both of you. Certainly he is that for every congregant, no matter what life stage they're in. This is who he is. He is God of the details. He's God of the universe. And if we just look for him, we will find him.
Yeah. I just loved listening to the entire sermon because I was threading the needle of how I know you the past 8 years, 10 years. Just as you're talking about it, you used the phrase land of grief, and how you have kind of been, what did you say? Fruitful in your grief. Just watching how you weaved all that together was really, really cool. And speaking of that grief,
let's double down on that.
Yeah. You said the concept basically is like God is with you in the land of grief. He hasn't forgotten you. And it's what Joseph seemed to have shown in his faithfulness.
Right. So this is what Joseph said after his 2 sons were born. Here's a little peek behind the curtain. We're all doing this relay race, right? You pass the baton to Barry, who passed the baton to me, and I'm passing it over to Barry. This doesn't happen very often. Sometimes when we're having topical series, you can write a sermon that doesn't necessarily have to directly connect with the one that's following it. But in this one, you're taking a piece of the story and I'm taking a piece of the story. And so Barry messaged me earlier this week. He's like, hey, how far into 41 are you going? How far into chapter 41 are you going? And I hadn't written word yet.
Like pretty far.
I'm not sure. Like it's pretty wide open at this point. He said, are you going to be mentioning Manasseh and Ephraim at all? And I was like, I could. I mean, I don't know yet. The sermon series overview I got from Barry, hey, this week you're going to be talking about 40 and 41. So I probably would have just included the entirety of 41, but he was wondering if he should touch on it. He's already working on his sermon for next weekend. So anyway, that was kind of funny. And in the end, I decided that, it was really important to include the part about him having 2 sons. That part is in there for a reason. Those names are so significant, even more so in ancient cultures. Your name was everything. And they didn't just name you something because they liked the way it sounded or because it was cute or popular. Your name had so much meaning. And so for him to name Ephraim doubly fruitful, and then to explain why he named him doubly fruitful, it's because you've made me fruitful in the land of my grief.
Yeah.
Or for Manasseh to be, God has caused me to forget all of my troubles and my father's family. It's like, I'm naming you, I'm forgiving my brothers. That's your name. That's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talk about that and you acknowledge that Elohim, God above all gods, has made you fruitful in your grief. Mm-hmm. So this is a question for both of you. How do you guys personally resist hardening your hearts while in the land of grief? Because one option is to lean in, be faithful to God, and on the other end, you're fruitful in your grief. The other option is to harden your hearts, because you were kind of pleading with people, don't harden your heart, stuff, that's the other option. Harden your heart. And so how do you guys resist doing that when you're in the middle of the land of free?
A friend asked me a similar question after hearing yesterday's message. I spoke yesterday about leaning in to what we know to be true of God. Joseph could not see the hand of God when he was in prison, but still he leaned into what he knew to be true of God. Interpreting dreams is God's business. That's what he says to the prisoners before he interprets their dream. I think that's really important to catch that. Even in whatever dark place you're in, whatever your pit means, whatever your pit is, even from the bottom, even there, you can lean into the things that you see described to be true of God. I have done it in different seasons of my life. I was just talking to my husband about that last night after a really, really long day, and a lot happened yesterday, and we were kind of, just recapping how the morning went, and I was like, really, that's both of our stories. You leaned in when you could have pushed God away. You've had tragic situations in your life, and both of us made the choice to lean into who we knew God was to be. Jed has siblings who didn't make that choice, I feel like I have friends right now who are kind of teetering, and they could fall either way. They could fall backwards and fall away from God, or they can fall forward and fall more into God. And so that was my plea yesterday, to fall into God, to lean into Him, even when, you can't necessarily see His hand at work.
Yeah.
That's kind of the theme of this entire series. Amy, you said essentially He's working even when you can't see Him working. And I was trying to find another way of saying that, because that really is one of the overarching themes of the story. Our God, who's present in the details, even while we're sleeping, is putting things in motion that we can't see. We got trust that He is doing it, because He is doing it. That's one of the themes. Other themes are forgiveness or mercy and things like that. But the overarching theme is just God's faithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think mine is I just try to be obedient, even when it's hard. Like I feel like my whole life has just been saying yes when I feel like He's presenting something to me, and until He tells me that it's time to stop. Even if I feel like I'm in grief over it, I'll keep taking one step forward, or keep kind of the same concept, I guess, of just leaning into Him. And He's never failed me so far. So I just keep trusting that He's not going to. And I keep, I feel like He's really guided me through most of my life. Like I never imagined this is where I would be. There's pieces of this I imagine, but not constructed this way. Yeah. So when I look at that, I can see where He was at work, and so I just have to trust that He's still in the midst of whatever's going on.
Yeah, I had a long day yesterday. I keep saying that, but at the end of the day, one of the things that happened, a congregant, a family really that I love so much, their little boy is sick right now, and so it's just heartbreaking. Some of the challenges and the tragedies that are happening right now in the lives of people that I love. And I was just kind of crying out to God on my way home from work yesterday. Like, is this what ministry is? Is it just pain upon pain upon pain, carrying people's grief with them? Is grief my full-time job? Like, whatever. I just was crying out to God. And the scripture that came to mind was that He was a man of sorrows, acquainted with our grief. Acquainted with our grief. Then I got home, and there are things happening in my kids' lives right now that just filled me with even more grief. And they were filled with grief. So we had this giant grief party around my kitchen table. And I tried to encourage them with that scripture. Our Jesus, his life was full of grief.
Yeah.
He was a man of sorrows, acquainted with our grief. And so I see him in the pit with me, or in the prison with me. We saw him in the lion's den with Daniel. We see him in the furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Why are we surprised when we are in some kind of pit? Why do we ask where God is? Is it not enough to know that he is in our pit with us and he's not going to leave us or forsake us? He is with us. He is with us. And we just have to hold on and lean into him.
Do you think that is specific to us, like in America? Because the people I know in Ukraine have had a rough couple of years.
Yeah.
Not once have I heard them, people I know, not once have I heard them abandon, like God's not answering my prayer, so therefore I'm going to push away. Like, I haven't heard that once. I'm sure there are people maybe that are doing it. Just the group of people I know have never wavered in that. And it is always leaning into, we're going to trust. And I wonder if we are so accustomed to getting instant gratification, or
we're very pain averse.
Yeah. And like, you kind of pointed our attention to the timeline here. Like, this was a 13-year story of Joseph. And sometimes I can find myself praying for things for a couple of weeks and it's not happening, or a couple of months and it's not happening, and getting really frustrated that why wouldn't God give me this thing that I'm asking for? Doesn't he love me, kind of thing. It's like that's never been the deal. That has never been the promise.
Right. And isn't he working in every detail? That this is really hard to say, because I feel like you could take this, maybe in directions that I'm not meaning it. But as I was talking with my family last night, Gafford Family Summit, a grief summit, it occurred to me, my mom died of cancer, and that's pretty well known around here. And obviously my prayer for her to be healed was not answered. Does that mean God failed me? Does that mean God abandoned me? I don't think so. I think that that's the result of living in a broken world. And someday things will be restored, and he will wipe every tear from our eyes, right? But had I not spoken at her funeral, I would not be on this teaching team. That was the day. That was the day that all y'all pastors who came to Chicago for my mother's memorial, you saw something in me because of the eulogy I gave for her. And when Barry invited me to join the teaching team, he referenced that message, I guess, my mom's tribute. It changed my life.
Yeah.
I would do anything to have my mom back. And yet God was working through the circumstantial details of my life, even in my deepest grief, to lead me forward in my life for the advancement of his kingdom.
Yeah. And it's just, it's kind of like mind blowing to think about, because you go through the whole thing. If this hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened, But with your story right there, what you just said, this 8-year period in your life, we don't know the end of that story still.
Yeah, right.
Like, that all is going to be a detail in your kids' lives that are going to have to deal with grief one day, and they're going to watch how their mom went through it, and they're going to remember that, and they're going to be inspired by it. Whatever. It's not written yet. It's not done.
Yeah.
And
well, and I think that whole idea too of what others or the world meant for harm, God will use for good. And so what could have been harm for you in that grief in the mourning and the injustice of your mom being taken as early as she was, because you allowed God to use that, he worked what could have been harmful for the good of his kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think maybe, and I'm saying this because I'm like, it's an aha moment for me. I wonder if that whole idea of good, that's what the good is. it may not even feel totally good to us.
Yes.
But it's for the good of humanity and for the kingdom progression.
His
and
purposes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that you could have wallowed in the pain and the harm that was done to you, because it was hurtful for that loss. That loss is deep. But in that moment, God's like, oh, no, Mary, hang on to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you did. And now here you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like going back to Joseph, you point out when he's interpreting the Pharaoh's dreams, he's basically like, there's going to be 7 years of surplus and then 7 years of famine. You need to choose a guy. I know a guy that can help you, take care of this.
Actually, he didn't say that.
He said, you're going to need to find somebody wise to help you do that. And Pharaoh's like, how about you do it? Right.
Yeah.
And so, so you point out, had none of that happened, which comes after a long list of had none of that happened. The famine also impacted the Israelites, right?
Yeah.
And so even when we look at Joseph, we're like, here's the story of Joseph. It's like, man, didn't he finally make it by becoming the king's right-hand man? And, he finally rose to the top. Well, that still wasn't the end of the story.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because
And the purpose was so much greater than Joseph.
yeah, the Israelites still have a whole story to tell. And that's not even the end of the story. The Israelites have a story to tell. And then we show up and Jesus comes.
Right.
And now here we are in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, God's big story, right? We start with Father Abraham, and he's going to make him the father of many nations.
Yeah.
During the time of the Joseph story, Israel was only about 70 people.
Yeah.
Like when you tally up wives and children and children's children, they were only about 70 people strong. They had not yet grown into a great nation.
Yeah.
But God was faithful to the promise he made to Abraham, and he kept the yet unknown little, nation of Israel from starving to death.
Yeah.
And he did it through Egypt. Even that's interesting. He could have just caused things to start flourishing around Jacob and his family, and he could have saved them another way.
Yeah.
But he used the hardship of Joseph to save them in the most triumphant, rags to riches kind of dynamic way.
Well, and would the brothers have even been, they had so much to learn and so far to grow without the story go playing out the way it did. Would they have been who they needed to be to carry on? And
I think that's very interesting, because if you think about the whole context of Genesis, because Genesis was one scroll or multiple scrolls, varies like. But Joseph basically does the exact opposite of what Adam and Eve did. Like, Joseph waited for wisdom before doing anything. The whole story, we don't see Joseph take action at all until he's like, I gotta go. I'm talking to the Pharaoh now. Like, that's the first time you're like, okay, I can see he's trying to, or potentially like trying to do something to get out of this situation that he's been in, right? He's waited on wisdom to come to him, which is the exact opposite of what happened with Adam and Eve. And all of his actions are guided by the Spirit, which is not the same as Adam and Eve. And as you know, this is the first time God's Spirit, Ruach or Ruach Elohim, has been mentioned in the scripture since Genesis 1-2. This is the first time.
Yeah, this is the first time it's depicted as something that can infill or indwell a human being.
Yeah, which is crazy to think. Like, there has to, I don't know the timeline, but there's hundreds of years between Adam and Eve and Joseph, and this is the first time God's Spirit is mentioned since Adam and Eve's story.
Yeah.
That's insane. But anyways, Genesis 41:38, Pharaoh acknowledges the Spirit of God in Joseph, despite being a pagan ruler.
Yeah.
So that goes back to, he did it through Egypt. Like, God revealed himself through Pharaoh. Pharaoh, a pagan ruler, acknowledges that Joseph has the Spirit of God. What does it mean to you guys that someone outside of the faith recognized the presence of God in Joseph before anyone else who his own people did.
It's so powerful. It means I don't need to confront them with my arguments for why God exists. I don't need to outsmart them or, make the case for God. I just need to let his spirit live in me because it's undeniable.
Yeah.
The power of God on display through the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. Is that not what Pentecost was all about? That's what we ought to be doing.
I think sometimes I get in the way of a lot of what the Spirit wants to do in and through me because I think I have to do so much on my own. And I'm like, no, I just need to be everything that I'm called to be and allow him to work and do what I'm supposed to do. And then hopefully people will see that and go clearly.
Yeah.
I was seen, it shone through him in ways that were undeniable, even people that didn't believe it.
Because the story never says Joseph was going to do all these things so that one day Pharaoh would recognize the spirit. That's never said. It's just what happened.
Yeah. He acknowledged God in everything he said and did, right? So when it's brought before Pharaoh, he could have said, sure, man, I'll interpret your dream. But he said, I can't do it, but God can.
Yeah. Yeah, throughout this story, we hear scripture says that the Lord is with Joseph. And even in the darkest of times, like thrown into the pit, being sold into slavery, being in jail for no reason. What does it mean to you guys? What does it mean that God is with us in our darkest season? Like, what does with us mean? What does God is with us? What does that mean to you guys?
Wow. So I already mentioned I had a phone call with a family whose little boy is in the hospital. And I was giving a friend a ride home from last night's teardown. And
it was a big night for you.
It was a really big it was a big day yesterday. Anyway, I knew I needed to talk to this family on the phone. I mean, they were in the ER as I was driving home. And so I was talking to them and I pulled over. I asked the person I was driving home, is it okay if we pull over so I can pray over this family? And they know each other, the family and the person who was in my car. And so I was praying, not even with the family on speakerphone. I just pulled over so I could have the phone to my ear and be praying for them. But the person I was driving home was also praying. And next thing I know, she's holding her phone in front of her face. And it says, I see God. He is near them / with them in an ordinary chair. And I was like, I don't know. But then as I was praying, I was like, okay, I wanted to share that bit of encouragement with the family. Hey, I've got someone in the car right now, and they said that they see that Jesus is near you. He's with you in an ordinary chair. And as soon as I said that, call it an interpretation, I don't know. But as soon as I said that, I said, and you know what? That makes perfect sense because we often act as though God is far away on this grand throne when we're in these pits or this time of despair, and we're on our knees and we're pleading to God to make our loved one well or give us what it is that we're asking him for. He is enthroned, but he's also the God who came near to the point where he was brought to this earth and laid in a manger, an ordinary manger. That's not even for humans. That was for animals. Mm-hmm. He's still the God who draws near. And so I loved the imagery and understood the imagery of him in an ordinary chair. I said to this person in the hospital, tonight when you're sleeping on that bench, he's sleeping on a bench with you. And when you're sitting in that chair in the corner of your hospital room next to your kid's bedside, he's also sitting in that chair in the hospital room with you. That's what it means for him to be with us, with me, in scary times, in good times, in bad times, always with us, comforting us, a man of sorrows, acquainted with our grief. But it also means that if he is with us, we carry him everywhere we go. We take him with us. And so if there is a a nurse at Riley right now who's filled with the Spirit, the comfort she can bring into that hospital room just by walking through the door, because God is with her and she exudes the Spirit and she's spreading life. I think he said that there were some people on staff who have been praying over the family and over the situation. These are people who know that God is with them, and they are bringing God into their workplace, acknowledging him in everything that they say.
That's one of the coolest things I think about this story. Like I said, I'd never seen the show. It's a great show. So I was like interested in the story to a deeper level than what I'd already understood. But just kind of like understanding how this is written, like the symmetry of Genesis, the intentionality with how it's written. We start with the story of a kid who has these crazy dreams and that he's going to rule over everyone and people will bow down to him. And now we see that happen. We see his dreams become fulfilled in this. Pharaoh gives him signet ring, his clothes, his authority, and his chariot. And he becomes basically an image of Pharaoh while also representing God with wisdom and authority. So what you just said, like, isn't it cool that you can represent, like, what it means to represent God with wisdom and authority and move about in Pharaoh's world?
Yeah.
Represent Pharaoh or represent whatever, but also do it with the authority and wisdom of God. That's probably the coolest part of this whole story.
You can take it with you wherever you go, even if it's in, the enemy's camp, even if it's in a foreign land, you can take him with you everywhere you go. Over the summer, I had a sabbatical this summer. I visited a different church every Sunday. And one of the churches I went to was a Greek Orthodox church, and they use incense in their worship, which I never really understood until I visited them over the summer. It was one of the shorter services for an Orthodox service. I think it was kept to only about an hour. It was a Vespers service on a Saturday night. Anyway, I leave the service. I'm with my daughter. She went with me to that service. And we went to a store immediately following. And when the double doors of the store open, you know how you get that little blast of air whenever you walk into a store that has double doors?
Yeah.
So I get this little puff of air and I smell the incense on my clothes. I took it with me from...
That's why they do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it represents Ruach. It represents the Spirit. They do it for all sorts of reasons. But it just so happens you walk out of that, beautiful service. You walk out of this sanctified room, this place that represents where God meets with his people.
Yeah.
And you carry him on your clothing into the community in a way that is recognizable. If someone were to stand next to me, they would have smelled that incense on my clothes, right? And if that's supposed to represent the Spirit of God, and I'm now saturated in the sweet aroma of the Spirit of God, and I'm carrying him into Goodwill, that's where he went.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What a cool picture. What a cool picture. Sadly, that gets a little lost on us. We don't use incense in our worship. But the idea is the same.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That he's with us and we take him everywhere we go.
That when we did the show, the pinnacle of the show for me was close every door. And I talked to Isaiah, like Joseph, about that because that whole song is you can do whatever you want to me. You can shut, I don't matter. But children of Israel are never alone. And I know you are here with me now. Yes. I know you will be with me. And then they follow it up with Go Go Joseph, which is, it's funny that it's such an upbeat song, although it should be, but that is kind of what I feel like God is saying to us all the time. Just go, go, go. Like, I'm with you. Trust that I'm with you and just keep pushing forward. And I am with you. And I do know the end of the story. Yeah. Everybody laughed at that when they were like, we know the we read the book and you end up on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which is interesting because really, I don't feel like Joseph would say, no, I didn't end up on top. I just did what God asked me to do. And he used me in this way, whether it was up here or down there. He would.
It's actually he ended up in.
Yeah, he was. Pharaoh was still top dog. And I'm sure he made sure everyone knew that.
Yeah.
But I just love that moment. And I said that for me, that was Joseph's moment of reckoning in that prison where he could still sing.
I love that he sang it angrily. Because sometimes, like, that's what I was trying to say at the end of the message. If you have to be like Joseph's father, Jacob, and wrestle this truth to the ground, what you know to be true of your God, when we went into that time of reflection, if you need to reach your hand out and grab hold of him and say, I will not let go of you until you bless me. That's how Isaiah played that piece of Close Every Door. Children of Israel are never alone. I'm in prison. Doesn't look like you're here, but I know that you are.
Yep.
And it was like he was wrestling when he sang it. It was brilliant.
It was after we talked about, like, I think this is the moment that he really shifted over and took that. And he owned that song in a new way. And I felt like it was a really beautiful representation of exactly what we're talking about here. Like, sometimes you do have to convince yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to say over and over.
All the time when I'm working, even in church. I said it yesterday. I command my soul to praise. I command my soul to praise. Sometimes you got to encourage yourself. Yeah. And sometimes you wrestle through it.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do the baker like that, though. Like, it was pretty graphic. Like, they could have just said the baker, yeah, you're going to die in a couple days.
It was a great indignity. We can all agree.
My favorite part about you talking about this, Maron, was when you made a motion for impale.
Yeah.
But you went like impale. Like, that is not the motion for impale.
Is it more like, ugh?
It's like, ugh. Yeah.
Okay. I'll come to you for motion coaching.
Yeah, they're like,
before I
Ian Pitt's never the guy that you impale.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyways, where do we go next? What are we doing?
Barry's bringing it home.
Yeah, I knew no one would ever saw it. He's preaching about
the end
he's
of the
wrapping
story.
it up.
He's bringing it home.
Reconciled and a promise fulfilled.
Yeah, because like we said a few minutes ago, while this could have been the triumphant end of the story, Joseph is the hero of the day, the man with the plan, and all of Egypt is saved. There's still one more incredible thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, we got to follow up with his family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Amy, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for
doing a great show.
Thank you for letting me.
You're welcome.
Hey, everybody has to be behind it.
You're right.
So
you're right.
Yeah. It was it's always like it's one of the higher pressure things I feel like we do. Like, we don't suffix to this thing. That's gonna stink really bad. And so it always feels like a thing that is full of pressure. But once it's over, it's like, man, I'm ready to do that again. I personally am ready to like feel that.
The joy in the building was just palpable. It was really, from the audience to the crew to the production to the cat. I just feel like people were hungry to laugh and sing and clap their hands and have confetti 2 times. Like, people love the confetti.
Yeah.
The stage not so much. But
Guns.
they are now.
They are.
Because we made money on one of the previous shows, we were able to purchase spotlights and some other things. So, and that it does help us.
Friend of the father, Jay Horniker, gave me a great idea.
That's okay.
That I'll share with you.
Did you give him permission? Oh, okay.
Oh, after the show.
Oh, now everyone who knows Jay is going to be like,
I know.
Jay, what was a great idea?
He was excited to tell me.
Okay.
At first, I was like, I don't think those are ours. But now that I know they're ours, he's got a great idea for confetti can.
Oh, gotcha.
Launching.
No, it's confetti.
Like, what else can you put in a confetti?
Every Sunday we're going to launch confetti?
Yeah.
Mulching.
In the middle of someone's sermon, just...
Yeah, I guess I did get a text last night that there were a couple of kids from the kids' chorus that were meticulously sorting their confetti that they took home.
Goodness.
Oh, they took home.
They took their confetti. They were sorting it out.
Do you think any of the brothers will like shave their beards? And
some of them haven't from the beginning. That's disgusting. Yeah, if they do.
I saw Jordan yesterday at church, and I was like, "Hey, man, you gonna keep that beard?" He's like, "No, I can't. Like they grew all these beards.
Some of them did. Some of them had them coming in. I'm just so grateful. Jordan and his wife are with the baby any minute, and I thought maybe it was coming during the show.
Oh,
and it didn't. It didn't. So I said to Jordan on the way out last night, I said, "Guess what? You can have a baby.
That's right.
You guys are allowed to have the baby. Like I'm in charge."
Well, all right. So Barry will be back next week. He's on. We didn't even say he's in Florida. He's on vacation.
Yep.
So that's why he's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week, and then we're probably going to take a break because of Thanksgiving, but we'll sort all that out in the days we said. So, Maron, will you please send us out?
I will. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
We'll see you on the next side of Sunday. Next side? Other side.
Wow.